would not have known about if it weren't for Amazon and those, how they gradually learn what you like. And then, well, Phoenix, I hope you'll stick around to read some more Dark Kid. But for now, we have our next guest, someone who I once thought of as my arch nemesis, believe it or not.
Jeff O'Brien.
No,
we have Derek McCormack here.
He's not that bad. No. First things first. I mean, we can be amicable, but I've got to ask, Mr. McCormack, why did you write Well-Dressed Wound?
Oh.
Why?
Just to fuck with you, I think.
Yeah, specifically you, Jeremy.
Yeah, I just wanted to fuck your mind up.
Oh, man. But the synopsis was so great. Abraham Lincoln in a Ouija board ceremony or whatever. I mean, that sounded awesome. But then I didn't get that kind of satisfaction in the text. And I understand it was through a university experimental press. Did you also, and you also thank two different entities at the end of the book that indicate that suggest to me that you received grant money for writing it? Is that correct?
Oh shoot, I can't remember if I don't remember getting grant money. I remember I know the presses got in Canada. That would have been American Press. Yeah, I must have gotten grant money. One was for I remember. I wish I had the book here. I had cancer and I got money to live from the Writers Union of Canada, which gives money to people who are sick or about to be evicted, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Well, cool. I mean, it's a pretty cool program, not that you had to use it.
Yeah, so I hope you feel kind of bad for asking that.
I am.
I hope you do too, Jeremy.
What's he eating?
Eating a crow.
Wait, but what pissed you off so much? Just that you were unsatisfied by the book or dissatisfied?
There were entire pages where they were just like symbols and letters and
aren't most books like that?
Why? I wish I had it readily available. It's around here somewhere.
Yeah, that's okay. It's true. There were pages of exclamation marks.
Why?
And empty quotations. Well, okay. So do you know Martin Margiela, the fashion designer that's at the center of the book?
No.
He was a fashion designer who was famous for 20 years, very famous for erasing. He bought vintage clothes and painted them white to erase them. Everything he did was white. He never appeared in photographs. He never appeared on stage. His models were completely masked and faceless. The people in the studio and the atelier all wore white, like traditional couture coats, but they went uncredited. He did things like when he was asked to do a museum exhibit, he would put a white dress outside and spray yeast, bacteria, and mold on it, let it grow, or bury it and dig it up and see what had grown. So he was a writer. His label, for example, is the first label in fashion was just a blank white piece of cloth stitched with 4 stitches in the clothing. So if you didn't know who he was at the beginning, you would never know what that label represented. So he was, first of all, a designer about blankness, about blanking out, about disappearing. So that interested me. And 2, I was dying at the time. I wrote most of the book. I couldn't sit up. So I wrote most of the book in my head. And when I could get a bit of consciousness, I would type into a computer. And so the book was really about me thinking I was going to die and hoping that there was a Margiela store in heaven because I fucking love the clothes. But 2, about me disappearing in the book. Like it would be my last book and I would disappear. So that's the quickest answer I can give.
Wow, interesting.
Well, first of all, when you say that this guy used to bury and dig up clothing, that's funny because we were just talking about a black metal musician earlier in the show who did something very similar.
Right.
But
Dead from Mayhem.
Okay. I mean, it's a very monstrous gesture, right? I'm sure he wasn't the first one to do it, but he was the first one to become famous in Paris for doing it, for sure.
That does make me feel really bad that
Good.
you know, that's where your head was at the time. But how could anyone who didn't already know you or was in your immediate circle, you know, how could we have gone on that journey with you based on the text that is in that book? You see?
Yeah, I get it. I think that book, of all my books, and I've never said that I write poetry in my whole life, but I think that leaned more heavily on poetic techniques than other ones. I mean, the slimness of it. For me, the important thing about the book was, well, one, the viciousness, because I was just angry. And the second was the anger, to express the anger about disappearing. And so it was not a book that really, it was a book that, I think you're right. Your response is not wrong, because it was a book that thought, well, I'm not going to indulge the reader. I'm not going to inform the reader. I'm not going to draw the reader in. I'm going to erase the reader as much as I'm erasing myself. So of all my books, it's the most, has that like conceptual overview. And would I do it again? I don't know, because I can't put myself back in the stage that I was in when I wrote it. Do you know what I mean? I can't even remember how sick I was and how sad I was.
Go back and you wouldn't want to be in that space again.
Yeah, and that book for me is really about anger, and equally like pushing death away, but pushing the reader away and pushing writing away. It was pushing everything away. So there's no surprise that it's dissatisfying or unsatisfying. The people that love fashion got it, I think, and some people liked just the anger and the erasure. The erasure like had to do with other poets for sure that came before me, like Chelsea Minnis is an example that I can give you. But of all my books, I think, yeah, it's the least narrative for sure. Like the new book has, it ends with a story with like a hero and who gets revenge and falls in love, and it's not a typical structure, but the story is kind of a kid's story. You know?
Now, when you say new book, I mean the show that smells is still pretty new too. But I assume you met Castle Faggot.
Oh, I met Castle Faggot. Yeah.
That's brand new. That's
brand
like
new.
Weeks.
Yeah.
So,
did you ever get an answer from Amazon why it got yeeted off for like a week?
Yeah. It disappeared. I was fortunate because, when I told people, people got pissed off and posted on social media about it. And also, I've worked at an indie bookstore in Toronto for like 26 years. And I called the reps at Penguin Random House. And Penguin Random House, of course, owns the world. It owns the world of publishing. It owns books in general. They distribute semiotext as of this year. So Penguin Random House intervened, I believe, with Amazon and said, this book, you know, as disgusting or stupid as it may be, is one of ours. And lo and behold, Amazon listened to the mega corporation.
So this book was published by some subsidiary or imprint of Random House?
Well, Semiotext was founded in the 70s. It's an experimental press. You know, they started off publishing people like William Burroughs and Kathy Acker and Deleuze and Guattari, Baudrillard. Right. And they still do. Their mandate is experimental fiction. And they were distributed by MIT, the university. And MIT became part of the distribution arm of Penguin Random House last year. So they're still, independent, but they're part of the monster now. They're part of the machinery. Who am I talking to, by the way? Who's here?
Okay.
Oh, there's a lot of
I'm
people
the host.
here.
I'm the one that wrote all the hateful review material about Will Road.
Wait, where did you write it? Where did you write it?
Goodreads and probably Amazon too. You've never read it?
I don't read reviews ever.
Oh, that's probably
a good decision.
Probably a good idea. I could read.
You don't want to hear people like Jeremy telling you stuff.
I could read it if you're curious, but if not, I will leave it alone. Beside me is one of my original co-hosts, Zach Magaha, who has more of a religious theology bent. Beside him is Ben Arzate, who wrote most recently Dr. Sodom and Mrs. Gomorrah and the Story of the Why.
Yeah. I think you found out through me that the book had gotten taken off of Amazon.
You were the first one, Ben. You told me. You broke the news.
Next row down, we have Regina Watts, who is obsessed with transgressive fiction. Right, Regina?
Oh
And
yeah, I'm all about it.
Phoenix Rising or Rises? Which
Rises.
is Rises. Who writes these really dense, thick, 600-page mind trips. Vision quests, I guess. Then there's CC, which stands for Cunt Crusher. He's just kind of here, and he hates Emily Dickinson. I know that much about him. And on the bottom row is Gregor Zane, the greatest of all time.
Nice.
Wrote the Hanover Block series, which is like body horror. And then beside him is some schmuck that wrote The Well-Dressed Wound. And finally,
Fucking terrible book.
Chad Lutsky, author of The Full-Faced Boy, and someone who is far too reliant on sentimentality, according to Zach. Boom. There's everybody.
Just turning everybody
bringing
against
up
each other
the-
tonight.
So I just want to ask: are you all in different places, cities, states?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
And how do you meet, cohere? How did this become this?
We read each other.
That's a good question.
We read each other's stuff, and this show became like a haven for people that even sometimes the small presses wouldn't have.
Right. Yeah, good.
So
I'm all for it.
So
It's an odd crew, an odd combination. Yeah.
Well, it's nice.
ragtag bunch of misfits.
I've never done a online thing or any forum with like as many people, and I've certainly never done it with someone who's trash talked me before. But what do I care? What do I fucking?
He trash talked the last
Well,
guest
you
too,
did.
for some reason. He's in a mood, I guess. I don't
no,
know.
I did not.
Yeah,
No,
you
did
did.
you,
You kept on every time he mentioned that how much you liked his new book.
You'll have to forgive.
It's so much better than the other books you wrote.
You'll have to forgive our host. He has no tact at all.
That's
Yeah.
He doesn't have tact. He doesn't know.
It was
But,
a compliment because I said he was growing as an author. But no, you know what's funny, Derek, is that I bought The Show That Smells without realizing it was the same author that wrote The Well-Dressed Wound. And, I actually saw a difference. When I found out it was you, I was surprised because there does seem to be a little bit more plot in Well-Dressed or Show That Smells,
Yeah.
And for all I know, this could be The Show That Smells. I don't know.
Probably.
No, I mean the show that's all my books are stop me if I'm answering questions that maybe you haven't asked, but all my books are sort of trying to be other things. Like my book, which book was really trying to be a store catalog. The Haunted Hillbilly is really an EC horror comic from the 50s.
Oh.
And The Show That Smells is very particularly a Todd Browning movie with Lon Chaney that was never made that I wish had been made.
Wow.
I like that.
So it's no surprise that maybe you responded more to The Show That Smells because although it's still full of like bullshit puns and I'm trying to reproduce film effects with typography, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on a page of white and there's black sequins, there'll be 2 red ones to be bloody. It's also set in a mirror maze, so there's reflection. But that one was really, for me, a silent movie with Lon Chaney, and trying to do those effects that he did with makeup and without dialogue. So it has a form of narrative for sure. I'm for sure taking an antiquated form of narrative and taking all the restrictions of the silent era for a book. And the new one, Castle Faggot, especially the last section, as Ben knows, is like really my take on a Rankin Bass animated holiday special, one of those stop motion like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or Mad Monster Party. So it has songs in it and people singing and everyone's a puppet and they do puppet things and string show and so they're all sort of different and they all reach to different reference material.
Interesting.
Now,
you said that you were very heavily influenced by visual art, and as the center of Castle Faggot seems to be a particular piece of art, which is like a castle miniature that both goes on top of and on the bottom of a table.
Yeah. So if you go, it's the book's set in a theme park called Faggotland, and or it's part of a theme park. The land is called Faggotland, and the main attraction is a haunted house, a haunted castle called Castle Faggot. And when you get to the gift shop at the end of Castle Faggot, you can buy the dollhouse. And I don't know if it's on the cover of the book. I don't know if you know Richard Hawkins, the LA sculptor, but he's done a massive body of work. He's did shows with Dennis Cooper way back. I'm thinking, Regina, you might like Dennis Cooper if you like transgressive lit.
Yeah, definitely.
But one of the great series he did was he took store-bought Victorian dollhouses, that pretty, or a kind of sugary, and this would be the 80s and 90s, and he made them. He painted them black and purple. He made them abandoned. He made one a whorehouse. Filled them with purple lights, so they have a real spook show vibe. And the other thing he did with some of them is he hung them upside down under the table, so they were hanging like bats. Like I can't remember if it's stalagmites or stalactites that hang down, but he took this. He horrorized these dollhouses, and then he made them more horrific by making them. It was almost satanic. They were either pointing towards the underworld or they had risen up from the underworld. So in Castle Faggot, when a kid buys the dollhouse, you have to hang it under your kitchen table. It's upside down. That was my nod to Richard.
It seems like there were like multiple meanings to that, like one besides the obvious, like a haunted house turned upside down, but also the idea of that people who are LGBTQ plus having to stay under, I guess, polite society.
Yeah, underground. I mean, it's for people who are underground. It also means that the access to the house is maybe, it's like bending over, I guess, and getting fucked up the ass. It's, I'm happy with all the connotations,
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the things, have multiple meanings. Like the Count Chocolog character. Like obviously, there's the the famous stereotype, and the shit humor and all of that, plus the nostalgia of cereal mascots who promote these sugary diabetes-inducing cereals.
Yeah, just literally garbage. Don't get me wrong. I fucking love those monster cereals. Like, and I don't put milk in them. I just eat them.
Oh yeah.
In front of the TV. The other weird thing that when you were talking that I remembered, and I don't know if anyone else did this as a kid, but I used to climb on the couch in my parents' living room and watch TV upside down, and I don't know why I would have done that. Like probably boredom, restlessness. But I did have that feeling. I remembered that writing the book that when you're a kid, you watch TV from weird angles, right underneath, way far away, lying on your side, lying upside down. I guess there's a bit of that in it.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that's again, that's what I found very interesting is you can read all these meanings into that, but it's clear it's also a very heavily personal book. And that's even just excluding the fact that you have a fictional version of yourself as a character in the book.
Yeah, that was really me as a kid, loving those monster cereals and loving musicals and loving haunted houses and dark rides on midways. There's a ton of me, and to be honest, it's also connected in a way to The Well-Dressed Wound, because The Well-Dressed Wound was really my book. Like, your oncologist says, if you live, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to finish a book, which was just crazy because, like, shouldn't I be climbing mountains or something? I don't know. But anyway, I thought I'm going to finish a book. That book was really a howl. And then Castle Faggot is also a howl. It's a little funnier, but what my disease has left me with is just like, I had to learn bowel control. Like, it took 2 years to stop shitting on everything. So the book is literally, not just metaphorically, but it's literally about shitting. And you know, what kind of life that means when you, that's, you know, I always make this joke to my parents. They would be like, when my mom was alive, she'd say, you know, what's on your bucket list? And I'm like, I can't go further than 5 feet from my bathroom. Like, I don't have anything on my bucket list about the couch to the bathroom. And so then I wrote the book, you know, which is just a lot about shit and a lot about shit spraying everywhere and what we put in ourselves and what comes out. I can tell you guys don't mind me swearing, right?
No.
Oh, no.
Not at all. We love swearing here.
I mean,
We love them
So-
sentence enhancers.
I had no idea.
SpongeBob.
I had no idea that you had been through so much, you know.
Oh, how could you? I mean,
But listen,
Swearing doesn't have to be preferable.
here's the thing about Well-Dressed Wound, though. I mean, it's like there's 2 large paragraphs here describing what it's about, but I mean, you never get that in the actual book. I mean, at least not the way it's described, you know. In the depths of the Civil War, in a theater in P.T. Barnum's American Museum on Broadway, Abraham and Mary Todd Lincoln participate in a staged spiritualistic rite, but the medium conducting them is invited along another being, the devil, disguised as 20th century French fashionista Martin Margiela, a.k.a. King Faggot. What follows is the most fiendish runway show ever mounted, complete with war-dead, deconstructed couture, and gay ghosts infected with all manners of infectious agents, including oozy AIDS. And I feel like it's so minimalist what we get in the finished product that, you know, I felt like it didn't deliver what the synopsis promised, and I always have a problem with that. When that happens, I mean, do you feel like if it were today, you would write a more comprehensive story out of that outline?
well, I mean, the first thing I have to say is, like, I hardly ever write the outlines of those things. So that's problem number one. You know, that's written by, anyway, that doesn't matter. I approved it. You know, I don't know. My question to you is, if that show were staged, if I could stage that show with effects, would it be interesting to you as a stage show?
Yeah, I think so. I
You
mean,
know,
Yeah, from,
if I
from
could
the
have
sounds
those,
of it,
if I could have a seance where the devil appears and conjures fashion shows, dead soldiers, pus, disintegrating,
Basically
decomposing
Project
clothes.
Runway, how it is today.
I mean, what you're describing is
Not that I
surreal.
watch that. I just see my mom watching it.
You're describing surrealism, and so yeah, I would love that. Yeah.
So I guess my question is, I don't know if I would do it different. I don't know what I would go back and do again, but what I would love to see in the future is see if I could, if basically what you're reading was not a novel so much as a script. And if those visual effects could come to life, would they be fun enough to sit in a theater for an hour and a half? I hope so.
it sounds like it would very much depend on the director because, like, I haven't read The Well-Dressed Wound yet, but it sounds like it would be written similar to something like a Heinrich Mueller play, where it's it leaves a lot to the theater director to what they would actually want to do with it.
Yeah. You know, the thing about the thing about fashion shows that I love is that they cost millions of dollars to stage, and people from all over the world watch them, and they last about 4 minutes. And they have to be so high impact. And also, you just think of the waste involved in that, but also how potent those 4 minutes are in terms of not only commercial, but just like image making.
It's like poetry.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very condensed. It's compacted into, yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, the other thing that I love about, unabashedly love about The Well-Dressed Wound is a very oddball, an oddball thing that I set up in the book, which is that how would a dead or satanic fashion designer show their clothes off? And the book proposes, maybe too briefly, maybe, I don't know, that they would do it through seances. So then I did love that the sort of whole sense of spiritualism and seance and manifesting ghosts became a channel for Satan to show fashion. If you could conjure up a dead relative in your house and they appeared in the most amazing French high fashion, would you say, I have to dress like that? I have to buy that? I don't know. That was one of the ideas floating around the book that always amused me, that I'm still super happy that I did.
Somebody drop out? I'm sorry, did somebody drop out? Gregor?
Yeah. It's just his internet.
Okay. Go ahead, Derek.
Oh, no. Ask me something. Ask me something.
Okay. Well, I like going back in your catalog, I realized your first book was also about carnival rides. So I assume it's something that's very personally important to you, something you find very nostalgic.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if you guys can see behind me, but on this side, they're vintage knockdown dolls from carnival games. You threw the baseball at the ball. And on this side, cool. It's 1930s and 40s prizes, the prizes you would win from knocking this down with our
sick, dude.
Plaster of Paris adults. So yeah, I'm deeply immersed in carnival stuff. My first book, the stories, our carnivals appear in almost all the books, but the first book in particular, the rides themselves, and like I fucking love in the summer when you go to a Midway and you pay $8 and you sit in a dinky car and the ride lasts 40 seconds and the people inside are too bored to scare you, right? Like they're just smoking or having a sandwich. I love that you get jerked around and ripped off and you do it summer after summer after summer. So in Dark Rides, I wanted to write really short stories that, it's in that book, Grab Bag, from Dennis Cooper's imprint. I wanted to write stories that they were equivalent of those Midway rides. Like you got on, you were off in a minute, you don't know what the fuck happened to you. It might have been good, it might have been scary, it might have been a total ripoff, but what I loved was the jerkiness and the speed.
That's cool.
So the show that smells, that's that bat head, the severed bat head on the cover.
Well, the American version is.
Well, okay, fair enough. The American version, was that done with photography or computer generated? I'm
trying to remember. Oh, the show that smells, you said? Oh, yeah, the show that smells, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was done by my friend, who's a sculptor named David Altmed, Altmejd. He's from Montreal. He lives in Los Angeles now. And when he went to Columbia Art School, and his first gallery shows, and for many years after, were involved werewolves, and always dead werewolves and werewolves decomposing. And as they decomposed, their flesh turned to crystal. Sometimes it turned into birds, sometimes butterflies, sometimes flowers. So that is one of his heads that appeared in a gallery show so cool. He did. And often in his sculptures, the body of the monster is enormous, and you can peer inside the abdomen, into the skull, into the rectum, and see the crystal environments growing in it.
Whoa.
Wow.
So if you don't know his work, Google it. Now he's changed quite a bit over the years. Like when I first met him, he had a werewolf's head, a decomposing werewolf's head that was placed in Central Park as part of the Whitney Biennial. It was taller than me, for sure. Fake fur, jewelry, crystals, gold chains. Now for him, this is all about energy, life energy, connecting with death, connecting with angels. We chose that just because I fucking love his work. You know, I think he's a genius, and the work is so frightening and also, you know, very personal. When you talk to him or when you read an interview with him, he's never going to tell you it's about what you think it's about. You know, no matter what position you form on it, he has another story. But the works are so weird and so singular, and no one else makes shit like that anywhere.
Cool,
I mean, and his big influencers are like, you know, Cronenberg is an enormous influence. So you have a sculptor working with werewolf carcasses who's inspired by Cronenberg and metamorphosis and transformation. So yeah, I would Google him because every show is like, has something absolutely bonkers in it and beautiful. So yeah, that's an actual thing. Someone owns that. Some collector owns that somewhere in Malibu or Brussels or something.
So you're very in touch with the art world in a way that many authors probably aren't, you know?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I didn't do it intentionally. I just found that, hardly anyone reads my books. I basically have met everyone that's ever read one of my books, and I've met you all tonight. But artists seem to like my books, and I think that I think that the artists I meet are often hyper-visual people who have less of a need for a story or a resolution or an arc than they do for just like an assault of images. David, for sure, being one of them. I also find I love visual artists because I don't know about you folks, but like I walk through the world pretty stupid. Like I go to work with peanut butter on my shirt. I walk outside, it's been raining for 6 hours, and I wear sneakers and don't take a number. Like, I don't notice anything. Someone will say, oh my God, it's so beautiful. The trees are finally in leaf. And I have no idea what they're talking about. I live so in my head and in my basement apartment. And I love artists because they see everything. You know, you think their show looks amazing, and they're like, no, don't you see the mistake? There's a pencil line over there, you know, like down by the ground, or there's like a plug-in socket that hasn't been covered, or something is tilted and 0.5 millimeter wrong. And so I've tried to train myself through artist's eyes. Like I try and see with that precision in the world. I fail miserably, but when you're with an artist, you see a lot of shit. You probably know this. You all have artist friends, I'm sure. And they see things that writers, we see things too, and we try to convert them into words, but somehow artists don't try and convert them. They just take them for what they are. And I think they're more open. They're not working all the time. They're just absorbing.
Yeah, because I did notice that you do have a number of I don't know what you'd call them, like conceptual books that are more like art pieces that are released in limited runs.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. I love objects. Like I love this crap behind me. I like things. I like old things. I like tacky things. I like things that are broken or sad or whose use has been forgotten. And I sort of dream that my books will be tacky, useless, and forgotten. It sort of excites me the thought that after I'm dead, I doubt anyone will give a shit about my books, but someone might buy a couple at an old paper show or something, you know, and think, Jesus Lord.
You know what one of my problems is with, I hope I didn't interrupt your digression.
Yeah.
Well, one of my problems with art in comparison to stories with, a resolution, you know, and I don't know what that sound is, but that's pretty intense feedback. But so a story with an arc, you know, and a resolution and everything, I feel like I can take that with me. Whereas a piece of art like modern art, you know, like the severed bat head there that you said someone owns. I mean, it's like it stays somewhere outside of us. But if a story with a beginning, middle, and end, you know, that it doesn't even have to be a conventional beginning, middle, and end. But I mean, it's still something that you can carry with you throughout your day. Whereas an art piece, you're just observing, and then, you know, it'll always be outside of you. You can't take it with you, you know. That's how I feel about it. Same way about poetry, you know.
Right. I mean, I disagree with you. I understand why you say that. For me, a story in any form, conventional or unconventional, I mean, I'm surrounded by it. Like, it's all I've grown up on. It's all, you know, it's commercial publishing is based on it. Commercial filmmaking is based on it. But even fashion is based on, you know. And I don't have the biggest attention span. So poetry, fashion, a piece of sculpture like that, it works really, you know, it might not live in me, but what it does is remind me that maybe there's no in me, that maybe I'm open to the outside at all times anyway, right? That me is maybe in flux, maybe an illusion. At the very least, when I see an object like that I've never seen anything like it before, it makes me think, how can I write something like that I've never seen before? the sheer novelty of it is a hugely important thing for me. And it isn't for all artists, it isn't for all writers, but for me, seeing something that I only barely understand and I have to work towards over time is fun.
Totally.
So, what's your? It's obvious that you're very highly conceptual in your thinking about books. What's your process? Do you start with a concept and then do you just kind of like write by the seat of your pants, or do you come up with outlines, or how do you work in this kind of sort of less than conventional way of writing?
Yeah, it's changed. When I started, I would write, like Dark Rides is my first book of short stories. I think it's about 10,000 words. The original manuscript is about 84. So I discovered that I loved slashing and cutting. And that would be my process for a couple more books. Write a ton, and then boil it down to bones. That changed with the cancer because I couldn't fucking lift my head up for years. So I started writing in my head. And when you're writing in your head and you're drugged beyond belief, I could only carry so many words or remember so many words and so many paragraphs at once. And then I would write them down and then I would start again. And then I would write those in my head for days and days and days, even weeks. So that was a different kind of writing for me. And I suspect accidentally came closer to maybe what poets do, which is like carry lines around and rearrange constantly. Some poets. But also, in the Well-Dressed Wound, then what happens is I forgot, like I would write them and work on them and then forget them. So as frustrating as it is for the reader to see these blank spaces, they were very indicative of me at the time, which was blanked out by drugs and pain often. Like, it's weird to work on something in your head for 2 weeks and not remember a line of it. The new book is a mix. Like I never do an outline. I try and know what I'm going to do in my head. That always changes. But in my head, to be able to start, I have to have the beginning and an end point. The important thing for me is rewriting. A paragraph can take a month or two to get right. And then when the whole book is done, might need to be rewritten. I have to make myself laugh. Like I at least a couple times in the book, I have to write something so stupid or silly that I stand up and walk around and go, "You can't put that in a fucking book." Like that's the worst joke ever made by anyone. That's the stupidest, most childish thing. So it has to have that, and it also has to evoke. I don't have to make it public, but it has to evoke some feeling, some ache, or some warm memory of my past. All my books and all my stories have an emotional point, they concoct a feeling that I remember wistfully. I don't communicate. I don't tell people what they are. It can be simple as seeing Christmas lights across a field, in a upside down V on a house. It can be when you're in a mirror maze at a carnival and you notice like the glass or mirrors are smeared with snot or maybe blood. It just has to have details that evoke something childish in me.
Michael Stipe, he does the same thing with his music.
Yeah.
Like REM, he's very vague with his lyrics, right?
Right.
But they mean something deeply personal to him, even though we have no idea what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah, that's interesting because I loved REM in the day, and I read with Michael Stipe in New York the year before last. We got invited to read at William Burroughs' old apartment, and which his bedroom in the bunker on the Bowery is untouched from when he left it in 80 whatever. The bed sheets are still there, his glass is still there, his books are still there, and I can't say Michael Stipe was friendly at all, but. When you grow up, they weren't my favorite band, but I loved them. I thought they were great. And so yeah, it was cool being in a room with Michael Stipe. And yeah, that makes sense to me. A lot of lyrics are like that, actually. When I think about lyricists I love. There's even someone like when I was growing up, it was Morrissey. He was such a great communicator and such direct lines, but there were always things in his lyrics that were impenetrable. And in Shoplifters of the World, it's so clear what it's about. And then he says, alabaster crashes over, 6 months is a long time. And that's a very Stipian lyric in a way, because you think, okay, is that a movie he saw? Is that something he saw as a kid? So I love that there's like clarity and then emotional pockets that are maybe inscrutable. I guess the thing with Michael Stipe is when he was really on, it felt universal, like Night Swimming or South Central Rain. And he also could really sing. I mean, he had that ache in his voice. So,
Chad, you haven't had a chance to say much yet. Did you have a question for Derek?
You're muted.
I think you are muted. Yeah. Yeah. Did you have a question?
No, I'm just no. Thanks though. I'm just.
am I boring? Like, am I boring?
No.
Okay.
No, this is fascinating stuff,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, far from it.
Okay.
I wish I had known the personal backstory behind Well Dressed Women. Perhaps I would have been more kind to it. I still probably
Don't worry.
liked it that much, but
Yeah.
I mean, I really did notice that in the show that smells, I'm noticing something, that has more form in it than that did.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why did he write this back then? But now this actually has something I can hold on to,
But maybe that's good, right? I mean, maybe that's like, it's like listening to Lou Reed. Like every second record, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, so I guess the Well Dressed Wound is sort of almost like your metal machine music.
Yeah, it's
I
my
guess.
metal machine music, it might be for you. The thing is, as a writer, like, I don't want to piss people off or get them angry, but it doesn't worry me either. If I accomplished what I set out to do, and what I set out to do is pretty simple, like that book, as slight and as blank as it might be, it still made me laugh. Like, there are lines in that, especially that Stephen Foster says about like drinking. Okay, I love AIDS and stuff. Like, I just can't believe that shit that I was writing. And especially when you grew up, I don't know how many of you, like, you all seem younger than me. I'm old, but I came of age. I came of age in a small Ontario town, and when I told my doctor I was gay, I'd never had sex. I'd never kissed a guy. He sent me for an AIDS test. And I said, but I've never had any contact. And they're like, but you're going to get it. Like, you will die of it because you are gay.
Jesus.
And when I moved to Toronto at U of T, I mean, this is recent history. It was 87. I had a urinary infection and I was refused treatment in the hospital in Toronto because as a gay person, I would just be promiscuous and it wasn't worth treating me because I would always be back.
Wow.
That's
Joke's on them. You got cancer.
Yeah, I did. God got the last
And you
laugh.
beat it, apparently.
Well, we'll see. Me talking about beating it, I'm just fucking asking for it. Like,
Yeah.
we'll see if I wake up tomorrow.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Come on. Jesus.
Yeah.
Stupid.
So
Yeah,
that's
we-
a violation of the Hippocratic Oath. Go ahead, Ann. I'm just saying that's a violation of the Hippocratic Oath that they would not treat you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
no
is.
shit.
It is.
I was just going to say, sorry. Hi, my name is Ann. I was feeling really ill earlier today, but I propped myself up with some drugs, so I'm back.
Okay.
I've written a bunch of books, Nisquam, Electra's Revenge, Disaster Fitness. Anyway, I wanted to maybe at some later date, because I don't want to monopolize the conversation I just barged into, but I've had a similar experience of writing while bedridden and near death in my head.
Yeah.
And, since it's your only source of entertainment when you're stuck there,
I just lost her.
Froze up.
Yeah.
Always
but-
in this part, too.
I mean, I guess I would kind of get what she's getting at is I think part of having to be a writer is having something of a rich internal life. And if you, when you're sick, you're very hyper aware of your body in a way that you probably don't want to be. So it's
Anna,
nice
you're
to be able
back.
to escape.
Yeah, I think my phone just switched networks. I was just going to ask you. I wrote a whole science fiction novel in my head while I thought I was dying, and I remember just feeling a little bit vexed that no one else would ever be able to read it because I was probably going to die, and I probably wouldn't remember enough of it to write it down anyway.
Right.
But after my miraculous recovery, which is another entertaining story in and of itself, I got thrown in a mental ward because I was hallucinating so badly that the medical staff didn't have the brains between them to, take my temperature.
Right. See with delirium.
Yeah. I mean, I thought I was the president. And they threw me in the mental ward because I told them that my employer was Bob Barker. I'm probably about as old as you are.
I know who Bob Barker is.
Yeah. Some people here probably don't because Bob Barker is an old fart, a really old fart. But anyway, I was going to ask you, once I made my miraculous recovery, I do remember most of the book I read, but I have not yet taken the time to write it down because in hindsight, it didn't seem anywhere near as entertaining as it did when it was all I had to do with my brain besides die.
Right.
Did that happen to you? You said you had trouble remembering it, but also if you did remember it, were you like, oh man, that seemed a lot more entertaining then?
I guess the difference, I love your experience and I wish I could be in your brain for a second to read what you were writing. Because for me, especially, I think it's when you read The Well-Dressed Wound, it's really less of a book than a howl. It was really a howl over and over about how bad things could get, how many holes could open up in me, how many infections I could get. So I think you created a universe and populated it and moved among it. I didn't get that far. I mean, for me, it was really, now I did share the hallucinate. I had, my last surgery was 18 hours long. And at the end of it, they realized that the drip giving me the painkiller never kicked in. So I woke up, having had no painkiller for 18 hours and immediately for weeks, a month, maybe hallucinated beetles eating me, walls falling down, people pulling my teeth out.
Oh God!
People flicking me with stubs of arms and legs. So The Well-Dressed Wound is that book. That's what I was writing. That's what I was working with. It's a book of nightmares for me.
Wow.
And yeah, because of that, when I can answer questions about it, because I can't go back and do it. I don't know how I would redo it. It was so of a me that is hopefully gone.
Right.
And but that I took something really valuable from, which is that howl of pain. We should just let it go. We don't always have to dress it up in narrative, right? You don't always have to say she laid in bed recovering from the surgery that had caused her so much pain. Sometimes you can just be like Kathy Acker and just fucking scream on the page.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I haven't heard somebody reference Kathy Acker.
So,
but yeah, wow.
But
I had the advantage of having a disease that caused hallucinations in and of itself.
Okay.
So I really, like I said, I'm not saying I liked almost dying. I'm just saying I almost died in a really kind of entertaining way. Because, I'm sure cancer doesn't provide the same sort of intrinsic, LSD-like entertainment as a high fever, right?
Yeah, no, I can't. I can't imagine. I've been around people who've had high fevers and had delirium and had conversations with ghosts and things like that. It wasn't like that for me. And it scares me, but I can see how it might be richer for sure if you're conversing with the hallucination, or if you're involved in the hallucination.
Oh yeah.
Mine was more just like getting ripped apart, having my teeth stolen or having someone shove a tube up my urethra. I'm just hallucinating these things constantly.
I bet that was the worst. That had to be one of the worst parts of it, right?
Yes. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable to me. But then also look, like, it's crazy that someone can survive that, and I'm here. Like, I just can't believe it.
Man.
I just can't believe it.
That's fantastic. And I wanted to ask you, having gotten this far and gotten beyond this, hopefully forever.
Yeah.
Why do you think you survived? Why do you think you are? What do you think you are here? What purpose do you think you are here to realize? And we dropped it. We lost Anne again. Hopefully she'll be back. What purpose do you think you're here to realize?
I have no purpose. Like, I'm so useless. I'm useless in every way.
Your books aren't useless.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, in a way, I want them to be as useless as me, but they might actually have a life beyond me, which is so weird. Okay, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of answers. One, I'm here because of the Canadian healthcare system, because I got it all free. Two, I have people that took care of me for months and months and months. One thing, I know this is so cheesy, and I have a cheesy streak in me, but my best friend's wife was pregnant when I got my surgery, and the only thing I wanted to meet this fucking kid so bad.
Aww.
And I got to meet him, and now he's 8, and we're best friends, and I take care of him twice a week, and it's just the greatest. There's another thing, if you read Castle Faggot, it's really a kid's book, in a way, a really dirty kid's book. And that's largely because my 8-year-old nephew if no one loves shit and pus and pee jokes more than my 8-year-old nephew. Like, this book is so for him, and he's so happy I wrote it, and I swear, because now he gets to say shit and piss and stuff. So, yeah, this is I fucking love that kid, and that's another purpose. I don't know about writing. Like, I feel like I made this joke in another interview, but I feel like all my books now are posthumous, so I don't feel like I have to write another book. I don't feel like it has to be anything in particular. I would like to. I don't know if anyone's read The Haunted Hillbilly. That's about Hank Williams. I'd like to write another book set at the Grand Ole Opry, because I love that era of country music so much. And I love Nashville so much, or I did when I went there.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm in Tennessee.
Are you really?
Zach and I are both in Tennessee. Yeah, we're about, I'd say, I don't know, 6 to 8 hours away from Nashville, right, Zach?
Huh.
So which way? Which way are
you? We're a long way from Nashville for sure.
Yeah, you're in Sevierville, right, Zach?
No, I'm in Morristown, but that's
okay. I'm in the Tri-Cities, Kingsport, Johnson City, Bristol. It's like the cities are constructed in such a way that you can hit any of the 3 cities in like 45 minutes because of the way it's designed. So I'm in Kingsport, Tennessee. About 6 hours away from Nashville.
So Bristol, though, is country music capital.
It is, isn't it? I mean, it's pretty big, yeah.
That's the Big Bang.
So you know Bristol, Tennessee, fairly well.
I've been to Bristol. I've been to Nashville. I've been to Knoxville.
Knoxville's the best.
I like Knoxville, yeah. I wanted to go to the Roy Acuff Museum, which I didn't get to, just north of there. I've been to Memphis. Yeah, I've been to Nashville 4 times, I think. I love that city, but it's been years, so I just presume that all American cities have changed dramatically since the time I was there.
Now, let me ask you, did you find Tennessee to be largely judgmental when you were here? Because I think sometimes we get a bad reputation for that, and I mean...
Yeah, no, not at all. I thought Nashville, I found Tennessee super sophisticated, especially, I did research work at the Country Music Hall of Fame, and the people that are working there are just great archivists and interested in music. I read at an art college in Nashville, and like all art colleges, everyone was way too fucking cool for school, right? It doesn't matter where you go in the world, art school kids are the same. They're just wasting their time on whatever shit you're presenting. So I loved that, No, I never found anyone judge. I mean, I remember I was on the radio in New York City heading down there, and they were like, "Oh shit, you're going to Nashville. Those hillbillies are going to get you for writing about Hank Williams like this." And first of all, that sounded kind of sexually exciting, and secondly, I was like, no, it's just like any city has its cosmopolitan side, its academic side. It's like music. I mean, people love good shit everywhere. There's pockets of great everywhere. So no, I was never worried about it.
Oh man, did you get to see that giant model they have in Tennessee of the Athenian?
The Parthenon.
Yeah, the Parthenon with the huge statue of Hera.
I drove by it at night. I didn't walk around it or anything, but there was a club. There's a club we went to near there where the Silver Jews used to play, and I can't remember the name of the club. Anyway, I'm old.
Oh God, my Greek professor took his classics majors down there every year, and we just marveled at this. Like somebody in Nashville, Tennessee, decided, "Hey, let's reconstruct Athens out of concrete."
Yeah. I mean, Nashville's it's a weird city to me in that it has this history of like, it's a university town. It's a wealthy town from insurance. And then even though it despised the countryside that grew up, I mean, that's a source of enormous economic power and prestige there. And so it was a weird, it was a very, very, I found Nashville to be more like a northern city in that the concentration of wealth and universities and the evidence, like the Parthenon, and evidence of this kind of genteel history. That at least they wanted you to think it was genteel.
Yeah. Although the American penchant for making copies of everything out of concrete is. I guess it's more intellectually curious than actually genteel, which is fine by me,
Yeah.
So
does I was going to ask, does the Haunted Hillbilly, do you know if that's been published in America or not? Because I definitely really want to read that. I'm a huge Hank Williams fan.
Oh, it was published by this was a long time ago, like 15 years ago, by Soft Skull. And they let it slip out of print, but I think you can find copies for $1 or $2 online. Like, I know when I ran out of copies, I bought 3 copies online for $3. I'm really sad they let that. It didn't sell, but it had this really beautiful cover by John Langford of the Mekons, and I think people thought I was making fun of old country music or that Nashville scene, when actually it was the opposite. It was it was a bit twisted. It was like an EC horror comic, as I said, but I love that shit. I revere that stuff. And so I packed as much history as I could, because it's like it's a book written by a fan, it's full of arcane information.
Soft Skull. No wonder you and all of this sounds so familiar. When I worked at the Chicago Reader in the early aughts, I was the one book reviewer who would always review the weird shit, and I reviewed a lot of Soft Skull books. I wonder if I've ever reviewed you.
I read in Chicago. I can't remember. Do you know the writer Joe Mino? Oh, you know who I read with? I went down there. I was with Daniel Sinker, who founded Punk Planet. I toured with him and Joe Mino, and so I had these Chicago connections there.
Okay. Well, I was, for reasons unknown, I was blackballed at Quimby's, so I never read there.
I never read there either.
I've never figured out why they blackballed me, but I used to read at Bucket of Blood when the guy from the Fur Coats, a punk rock band, ran it.
Yeah. Wait, was that the guy that was in Wolf Parade?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, they're Canadian guys who moved to the States, right? I think.
I can't remember, but
or is that the Handsome Furs? Anyway, sorry.
Anyway, yeah, I'm sure we almost know each other in some way.
I had guys in that time period. I was in Chicago. I was young.
When you say you had Chicago connections, did you ever cross paths with an author named Sam Pink?
No.
Sam Pink that would have been after his time, really, probably. Sam Pink didn't start publishing till the early 2000 I don't know, 8 or something like that.
Really, I thought it would have at least been like 99. But yeah, okay.
Should I read Sam Pink?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
Yeah, I used to actually correspond with Sam Pink, but he and I are both so autistic that I think we just forgot to answer each other at some point.
I'm embarrassed to say I don't know that name or the book, so I'm going to get on that.
I actually just read one this week. Highly recommend. Person.
But, I think the way I actually discovered you, Derek, was Joey Camo recommended one of your books, the Show That Smells.
Oh, nice. And you've read Joey's books?
Yeah, I've read a few of them, and I was also a big fan of his A Softer World webcomic when that was running.
Yeah. Joey and I had the same publisher in Canada. Oh, he hasn't published a book in a while, and I haven't published a book in Canada in a while. But for a while, we were both at ECW. And he used to live in Toronto, so we were good pals. And now he lives across the country. And we're in a pandemic, so I haven't seen anyone in 8 months anyway.
Yeah. That's true.
I'm in a pandemic with maybe you're like a pandemic and I have no immune system, so I live in fear of. The early days I felt like coronavirus was like going to crawl through the keyhole and track me down, but I feel less afraid now.
Yeah.
Do you get things delivered to you? Does someone?
Yeah, and I've gotten over it a bit. Like I go out for walks and I double mask and I do people things now a little more. In the early days, like I'm such a hypochondriac that the early days were paralyzing, but maybe not just for me, you know.
I mean, with good reason. I mean, if to go through that and I mean, certainly you wouldn't want to, go through anything like that again.
Yeah, well, and people took such good care of me the first time, and I don't know if anyone would want to take good care of me now. So, like, I didn't want to risk getting sick and having people like, "Fuck, dude, you've taken enough of our time. You're 51. Just go."
Things like that. In the medical industry, I mean.
I shouldn't say that. My friends would never say that. They might think it, but they would never say that.
Well, so as we're winding down, because Phoenix hopefully is still going to read a portion from his upcoming book, Dark Kid.
Okay.
I appreciate you coming on and clearing some things up. And I never thought that this day would come. When I hated Well Dressed Wound so passionately, and now I have the full story. I have a deeper insight into why it was, constructed the way it was. And while I still may not, enjoy the reading experience, I can at least look forward to seeing how your future books, are different,
Yeah,
So
for sure. I don't mind people hating my book. I mean, I grew up gay in Northern Ontario. Like, I'm not afraid of anything, and I'm certainly used to people hating me. So it's really no sweat off my ass. But I do hope, if you read the last section of Castle Faggot, I hope you laugh, because it's just pure television animated.
Is it
cartoon.
going to be an ebook? Is it going to be an ebook at any point?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Does Semiotext really do ebooks?
I don't think so. But having said that they're now distributed by Penguin Random House, I would imagine they're under pressure to do that. Well,
the thing with the way the text is formatted, I don't think you actually could do it as a as an ebook, because there's a section that's where you have to flip it upside down to read it.
Yeah, I guess they could post it as a PDF, which I had it on my tablet. But when bookstores open again, just go into it's so short. Just go in and read it over 2 hours, and put it back down.
I could probably just buy it as a paperback or whatever. It's just Kindle is usually where I do most of my reading, because my shelves are filled to the brim and anymore, and they have to go on coffee tables or just any old where. But what are your future projects looking like, if you have any?
I am writing. Well, the next book, I guess. There's going to be a next book, because what else am I going to do with myself? It's going to be in Nashville. It's going to be another country music. It'll be like the Haunted Hillbilly 20 years later, and It's going to be a vampire book. The Haunted Hillbilly is a vampire book. This is going to be in the Haunted Hillbilly. There's a character who is a reporter for Vampire Vogue magazine, which is the fashion magazine for vampires. And this new book is going to be an article from Vampire Vogue. So that character will be writing this as an article about Nashville.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, thanks for having me. Thank you, Ben, for noticing and asking, and it's very nice.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on. I think this was a great conversation.
Well,
I wanted to say that I liked what you said about art and artists, actually.
Thank you.
I thought that was really interesting. And I'm sorry that you have experienced certain cruel things, but I'm glad that you write.
Thank you.
I'm glad you wrote your book anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, people end up going through cruel things. We all do. So I'm glad I came out, and I hope, I hope you don't. I hope no one else does. But if you do, I hope you get treated as well as I did.
Thank you, sir. And you can come back. You can come back. Get comfy with us anytime. It's cool.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah.
I've never done anything like this, so it's fun.
Yeah, hopefully maybe we can have you back on when your next book comes out.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, folks.
Bye.
Bye.
Be well.
Bye-bye. You too.
It's been a pretty satisfactory show, huh? So, Phoenix, I know we kept you waiting.